This time on Rad Rat Video, we're talking about if your height or your build affects your potential skateboarding ability, and a couple more questions too. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel where you can learn new things about skateboarding. I like to answer your questions on this series, Ask Rad Rat. You can submit your own questions through radratvideo.com or through Patreon. Links to both of those in the description. First question from today is from Magnus, and he says, how do you think Rodney Mullen would do in a pro game of skate, such as Battle at the Barracks? I mean, he ought to at least kill it on offense with all those weird old school and freestyle tricks, right? I don't think so, because there's so many rules in those games of skate. Like, you can't use your hands at all, so he couldn't do like all of his variations of finger flips. Like, he's got crazy ones. You can do frontside gazelle finger flip or like whatever, all kinds of crazy stuff, but it wouldn't count. Handstands, handstand kick flips, handstand finger flips. Technically different, by the way. Handstand kickflip flips like a kickflip. Handstand finger flip, you got your hands on the nose and tail and you're flipping it forward like a heel flip. He could do those, but that wouldn't count in a game of skate. All kinds of like weirder freestyle stuff probably wouldn't count. So I don't think a lot of his stuff would be valid. You can't do a Casper in a game of skate. You can't do like a truck stand. So he can do the basics. He invented all of them for the most part. But as soon as it gets to like switch backside heel flip and stuff like that, that would be a staple for a pro, mainstream pro skateboarder these days. I don't think he could hang with any of that stuff. So he could set some pretty good stuff, but I don't think he would hang in there very long at all. Despite being an amazing skateboarder, it's just the rules of that doesn't really work for someone who has a very unique style. If you can't do every normal flip trick in every stance, you're basically going to be out, because someone will find what that is. You don't do a lot of nollie, well, they're going to do like 10 of them and you're just going to be out, and that's it. So yeah, I don't think he would hang in there as long as you might think. Next question is from Graydon. Do you need a skate park to be good at skateboarding? That's a tough one. It helps a lot. I don't think you need it, but there is definite ways where it makes a big difference. So like one grind that I never learned how to do right is a Smith. And one of the big reasons is the box that I built at my house, I had round coping on it, and I drilled a hole in the top and a smaller one in the bottom so I could drill a screw through so that it would stay in place. And that works just fine. Most tricks, you do a 50-50, you do a 5-0, you do a crooked grind or something like that. You just hear a chunk, 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 chunk as you grind, but it doesn't really like throw you off or anything. With a Smith though, where you're locking in and your kingpin is on there, it would grab those holes and just throw you off. Now, if you got good at Smith grinds, you could probably do one on it and not think twice about it. But trying to learn it in the first place on there, very difficult. Trying to do a nose grind on a really crusty ledge, like I learned those on my box, but I have to time it out where I wouldn't land in one of the holes. But like a really crusty ledge where you don't know, like it's just kind of uneven and you don't know where the smooth spots are. It'd be really hard to learn stuff like that because you could land in a low spot and you're thrown off. That's the same thing with a Smith. Like if you land in a 5-0 and you get stuck, you can just kind of step out. If you're on the nose and you're leaning forward somehow, you get thrown off and you get hurt and you fall. That doesn't mean that those tricks are impossible on there, but if that's all you've got, it's harder to learn them in the first place and build up that confidence and build up the technique and get the balance just right and all that type of stuff. So learning specific tricks like that might be harder without a skate park. Building your own ramps is always a possibility if you've got pavement around. Like at my house, I have no pavement at all, so I couldn't build anything. But if you have access to that, you can do just fine. But like, it helps a lot as opposed to trying to do stuff in street. So if you can have a skate park where you're training and then you can go do stuff in the streets a lot easier. If you're trying to learn in the streets, it's going to be tougher. That doesn't mean you can't get good. That doesn't mean you're never going to catch up to people who do have local skate parks they can go to, but it does help a lot. So good luck to you. The next question, oh yeah, this one wasn't a question. This is from Zaz. And I just wanted to read this because I hate myself and I like to torture myself sometimes. He says, I'm not sure who runs a Twitter here, but I was a huge fan of Aaron when I was growing up. So if he receives this directly, I'm really glad to hear you got married and are doing well. I used to be a huge fan of your channel and I watched it endlessly back in the day. Seeing you all right and active has really made me glad. I do run that Twitter, although I basically never use it. I was married for 6 years and a week till I came home one day and all her stuff was just gone with no explanation. So yeah, I know you didn't mean to poke at that and to make me feel bad, but I just thought it was kind of funny that that's the thing you were happy to see, and it is not the case anymore. I am active and I do make stuff on the channel, and I am usually okay. I do have a video about how miserable and bad my life is if you want to check that out to see why your comment was so funny. Okay, the next question is from David, who was wondering, does height affect skating ability? If you're tall, will that mean you're better at certain tricks? If you're short, will that mean your center of gravity will help you, etc.? So I did make a video about this a long time ago, and it was about if there will ever be a female Daewon song, which is the way I phrased it. And my concept there was if you're shorter and your center of gravity is lower, like with a female skater, that should give you a higher potential for balance. So I was thinking like the next Daewon song could be female. A lot of people hated that video because they thought it was sexist for some reason, but I do think that that was a reasonable conclusion because your height does make a big difference. So if you're a very tall person and you start with your center of gravity higher off the ground than a shorter person, you could ollie over higher stuff. It doesn't mean you could jump higher, but if you jumped the same height as somebody else who was shorter and pulled your legs up, you'd be higher off the ground. So you could ollie over stuff that's a lot higher. It's interesting though, because the world record ollie, I made a video on like the highest possible ollie that you could do, I think. And the guy was like 5'9", I think. Like he wasn't tall, especially tall. That's average height, but like he wasn't super tall. But there's not a ton of competition. There isn't everyone in the world is really into high ollies. If they were, and every skateboarder on earth was trying their best to beat the record and do height-based stuff, I think the guy who's at the top would be relatively tall. There's technique and there's skill and there's whatever, but all other things being equal, being taller would make it easier to ollie higher. On the other hand, being shorter and have a lower center of gravity makes it easier to balance. So, like if you're tall, right, and you get a little bit off balance, it's easier to slip out. If you're really short, like if you sit down on your board, you can lean quite a bit and nothing happens. You don't shoot out. It's really hard to slip out if you're like sitting on your board or doing a coffin. Like you can't slip out doing a coffin, even though you're this high off the board because you're sideways, like you're laying on it. You can't, but in the middle, if you're shorter, but you're tall enough to be able to pop up onto a curb and like do manuals and stuff, you could potentially be very, very good at that because your balance has a higher potential. Now, how extreme that is, does it really matter that much? I don't know. Like there's no reason to do certain tricks based on your build. Like I'm tall, I'm 6'2". I don't try to do high ollies. Like mine are okay, but I don't try to like beat the record at ollies and grinding stuff that's super tall. I like balance-based stuff. I like tech. I don't have the potential to be the best in the world at them, but that's what I enjoy doing, so that's what I do. And so like that's what I would recommend, is to just do what you enjoy and not what you think that you might have the best potential skill at. But there is a difference. I just don't think it's huge. Like I don't think that you are never going to be able to do good manuals if you're over 6 feet, you know, like you could get there. You could also land tricks slightly crouched and more than make up for the difference, right? So I think it's more technique than anything, you know, like with the high record being a average height guy and not a really tall guy. It's more technique than anything, but if everyone in the world skated and there was ton, you know, like in basketball or something like that, where like everyone in every city is playing basketball all the time, and there's the pro level is only the very, very best of the best, you would start to see that. You know, millions of skaters all skating, then the super tech guys, the best in the world, would be shorter, and the super high ollie guys who are grinding super tall handrails and stuff would all be taller. Like, I think that's probably the case. But again, it's not a huge thing. You can do anything you want and you'll be okay, right? So that's my thoughts on that. I don't have any scientific proof, but it all seems to check out. So that's it for this time. If you've got questions, go to radratvideo.com and submit them there, or you can do so on Patreon. There's links to those in the description. Until next time, you can tap my logo on screen to subscribe. There's also some videos that YouTube has put there that you may or may not like. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.